I think so. I think we're live now.
You think we're live? What are we going to talk about today? How have you been? What's
We're
going
doing
on in
good.
the tech world?
How do I
Are we
have
doing
a?
good?
I have a.
I did notice that. Yeah. Did you eat something before getting on the podcast?
I don't think so. Maybe
Just
I did.
mustard stain or something?
Yeah, yeah. What did I eat today? I don't know.
Have you
Oh,
eaten
I had
today?
my.
This is very important.
I didn't. Went to my normal kind of standard lunch whenever I don't know what to do. I
Yep.
always go back. I fall back to like one thing. Do you have one thing that you fall back to every time? That's when
Yeah, I gotta admit, it's like a California roll from this place called Aburi Sushi down the street. But
Mm.
yes, it's a standard. And if I end up there 2 or 3 days a week, I'm obviously busy, and they laugh at me. What's
Well,
yours?
I do a outsmiter.
What's that?
It's a Dutch thing. So I mean, it's
Oh, okay.
nothing really special. It's just a piece of toast, usually maybe some cheese on it, or some other cheese or meat or something, and a fried egg on top of that.
Okay.
Simple. I do it often, and I love it. And then you'll often find like in Dutch in restaurants, like in cafes, they'll have like the English version and the Dutch version of the menu,
Right.
and they'll say, for the outsider, they'll say omelet. Omelet is something very different.
It's like an open-faced
And so
fried egg sandwich.
whenever I go, I was like, wait, so are you doing an omelet or are you doing an outsider, or is it you do different things for you don't think the
That's
Americans
what
are
it
going to
sounds like.
like?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I love it. I love it. You get it at anywhere. They'll be able to do an
Now,
outsider.
when I grew up, I grew up in New Brunswick, which is kind of like a smaller area of Canada that is
Hmm.
primarily known for potatoes. So when we eat meals, we primarily have like potatoes as the carb.
Oh
I
yeah.
lived in Japan for a while, and it was rice. I have heard a few stories about the Dutch, but is my understanding that bread is kind of that staple? Is that about right? Or something with wheat in it? Or no? Did I read
I
this
mean,
wrong?
they
No?
have a lot of bread. Yeah.
Is potato the staple? What is like that vegetable or whatever that goes with everything?
Potatoes are a big thing.
It
I
is
mean,
potato. Okay.
like there's the kind of the classic use all your leftover
Yeah.
vegetables, the vegetables that didn't either got cooked with a meal before and just had
Hmm.
left over, or just all the vegetables that you have left that you haven't cooked, and all goes into a stem pot.
Oh, what's a stimpot?
I probably pronounced that wrong, but it's basically this mashed
Steam pot?
potatoes. It's mashed
Sorry.
potatoes. There's
Yep.
usually a sausage or something like that in it, and then a
Okay.
whole bunch of steamed vegetables or vegetables that are in there as well. It can be on the very disgusting side, and
Yeah, I'm thinking
but
casseroles, right? Like it depends on what you
yeah,
had the day before. Your casserole could be pretty
um,
bad.
but I quite like it, and I especially like the kind that you get from Albert Heijn, the grocery store that is
Right.
everywhere. They have one that's just really nice. If you're sick, if you're like just can't be bothered you're so sick, not so sick that you can't hold anything down, but because it's coming back up, but sick enough that you don't want to go outside.
Right.
It's a good thing to have in your fridge.
Now, listen. I will admit that Michael Cote. I'm not sure if you know this person talks about the Albert Heijn incessantly on his podcast, but I wonder, do they
I don't know.
deliver? Because this seems like one of those things where you'd like. It sounds like comfort food, right? So you'd want them to bring it to you when you're
Mm-hmm.
sick.
You can get almost anything delivered there, so I wouldn't be surprised if. I mean, I've had like what in this country would it be a class one like drug? I've had that delivered. Be-
Interesting. like a schedule, like a
Schedule
schedule 1.
one, yeah. Like having. I mean, I don't know if it's schedule one, schedule two, anywhere.
I actually
But
don't know either. Is it
I
like
mean,
Tylenol 3 or something?
but like codeine.
Yeah, Tylenol 3. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I was thinking. Yeah,
Um, but just like cough syrup,
that's
codeine cough
great.
syrup. I've had it delivered. Like
Nice.
you call up a number, you describe your symptoms, and like an hour later, codeine arrives.
That is fantastic. Presumably on a bicycle. Again, this is all I know
I was so sick I didn't
about
notice
Amsterdam.
anything other than
Fair enough.
me having to climb down 4 flights of stairs to go accept the medication.
That is rough. So on the one hand, you have the convenience of delivery, and on the other hand, buildings often don't have elevators.
Roll down the stairs. Yeah, there are no elevators. There's a hook. There's a hook outside, but that's usually for like when you get a couch delivered.
Oh,
And they
sorry,
hold
like a
this-
hook and a cable kind of thing.
Yeah, so there's on
Like
a
a
lot of
pulley?
the older Dutch buildings. There's like this
Right.
this hook, this like a big hook on a piece of wood that sticks out.
Ah,
And so whenever you get furniture moved, like even IKEA or IKEA, you get that delivered. And usually the if they don't have the kind of elevator that pushes things up on a conveyor, then there's the person one person who has to go attach the hook, and the hook is just far enough out that you don't really want to lean over. I mean, I'd be terrified of this. I would suck at this job
but you're
because
pretty tall.
yeah, but it's a long way down.
Fair enough.
I mean, you're 4 flights up, and you're reaching out with this hook that you need to like just get onto another hook that you get onto the hook, and then there's a pulley, and then a big rope, and you get the
You have to bring
pulley
it through the
attached,
window,
and then you have to get
presumably.
the rope through there. Oh my god! Because
Now-
while I was living there was a every now and then they would ban certain drugs, certain drugs that were easy to get, like mushroom.
Yep, fair enough.
I don't know. Are mushrooms actually mushrooms?
Yes.
Or- okay.
Mycelium. You mean the ones that like magic mushrooms? Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about?
I mean,
Yeah, I think
when
they're-
you
I
say
think
when
they're
you buy
literally
mushrooms, do they look like mushrooms?
I mean, I haven't in years, but yeah,
I'm-
my understanding is they look like dried up mushrooms.
Okay. So anyway, there were a number of times where they like banned them, and then they were okay with them, then they banned.
Okay.
But one of the times where they banned them, while I was there, it was like within a series of a few weeks, people had taken them and walked off their rooftop.
Whoa.
But also, I seem to remember there was one time where a person was sitting reading on the kind of that window on the 4th floor, where they had like some bars that were blocking you from falling out, and then the bar fell off, and phew. So
Like
people
like
do
the-
fall
it's
off.
called Juliet or Julienne balcony, those tiny little balconies. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Phew. Now, I was trying to think of something more positive. So, if you will, for a moment, walk down this metaphor with me about lifting and shifting, which is what I was thinking. Like, when you're moving a VM to the cloud and you decide to just
You
hold
always
still.
find the DevOps connection.
So sorry,
to
it's
things.
the shirt. It's the shirt. But specifically,
that shirt.
I was thinking, like, what is this elevator in this story? Is where you really threw me for a loop. The slow elevator that pushes things
So-
up the stairs.
No. So usually, a lot of the newer
escalator?
or like more modern moving companies, they'll have this
Right.
trailer that goes behind the truck, and that trailer, it has like a so there's a trailer like this, and it backs up to the onto the sidewalk, and then it goes like this, and then from here it like extends, and so it basically creates this rail that goes up 4 flights. And then
Wow.
there's like a cart or a pad, a flat thing that goes up this thing and then comes down with up and down with the stuff that you're moving. And the edges of this platform fold up to make like a box if you need to like have lots of loose things, or go flat if you need like a couch.
I need photos and I need to start a new talk. I mean, obviously, this is so this sounds like the snow AWS snowball kind of thing where they help you out kind of stuff. And then there's you doing on your own, leaning out the window, trying to reach this hook in order to get
Yes,
your poor
yes.
VM into the cloud.
So I mean, if they have that conveyor thing that pushes things up,
Right.
you don't need to worry about the hook, because there are some. Turns out I didn't realize this until after I had, or until the day I had furniture delivered, because the moving company said, "Do you have a hook?" And I said, "I think so." I mean,
So the right answer is no.
well, the right answer in most cases is yes. I think so. And then on day of delivery said, "Where's the hook?" And there was no hook attached to my building.
Oh,
So,
shit.
and so they had to schlep up the stairs, which sucks because my stairs
But
were very thin.
they could have sent the truck with the
They
telescoping
could have sent it
contraption.
had I known ahead of because I think I arranged it from when I was in the U.S. Like, oh, I think so.
But I mean, yeah, they probably all do, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah, I do find that pretty interesting because I think in New York, for example, in like a 4-story walk up, I always wonder how the heck you could get IKEA up the stairs. And it sounds like
yeah,
schlepping it up is just the way it does it. Yeah.
yeah.
Did you see
I
the
mean,
comment that we got? Yeah, I mean, somebody obviously
some,
chimed in about mushrooms. Basically, the consensus is, or at least from Muhannad, that they say that if it looks like a mushroom, you've probably bought too much. But yes, they are mushrooms.
mm.
Which,
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you don't get those types of mushrooms at Albert Heijn.
right.
But Albert
But
Heijn does have. I mean, there are some magical things that you get at Albert Heijn.
I've heard it's amazing. Those apparently the store brand. I'm gonna say this wrong. Is it Stroopwafel? Because there's 2 O's.
Those are good. Yeah, yeah. And they're cheap. And then I mean, one of the great things that they offered was they did a a partnership with Douwe Egberts, which is like a coffee company, and they created this they created machinery as well as the replacement pods, and it was called Senseo, and it really a precursor to the Nespresso and all these other things that have complicated
Keurig or whatever.
pods.
Keurig.
Keurig.
Yeah.
There are always these plastic pods and a lot of
Right.
waste. Whereas the Senseo is this nice, like 2 bits of paper sandwiched together with like filter, like coffee
Smart.
filter paper,
Yeah.
with the grounds inside it, and it was like you
That sounds
get
biodegradable.
oh totally,
Right. Yeah.
you get like a 30 or you really need to have the two bag at the same time in order to get like a full cup.
Right.
But you could have 30 of these pods, so 15 days, and that was like €4 or €5.
Oh,
It was
that's
incredible.
ridiculous.
It was
Compared to
fantastic.
Keurig
Keurig or any of
whatever
these is like
Nespresso, yeah,
a
not
buck a
even close.
piece, right?
Or way more.
Or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
I like this. Yeah, I think so. Listen, I'm trying to
I mean,
have segues and stuff like that here,
yeah.
but I think the question for me is like, did this change the way coffee's made, and like,
Mm,
what is that transformation after that? Because now we're seeing a lot of these robot coffee makers. I don't want to
right.
say AI because I think it's like just automated,
Yeah.
but these automated coffee makers. And I do wonder if somehow being able to at least measure or like dose out the coffee
Mm-hmm.
makes their job easier. So we're paving the
Mm-hmm.
road. We're building the elevator that allows the IKEA delivery. Sorry, we're going
Mm-hmm.
way too far on this metaphor for the caffeine delivery.
Yeah. I mean,
I,
I wouldn't be surprised if Senseo, that machine, I'm pretty sure it predates all these
right.
others. I wouldn't be surprised if it. I mean, it changed. It made everything, advanced is the art of coffee making, or not art. I mean, I don't think
State of the
anybody
art.
would classify Senseo as really great coffee,
Mhm.
but it was good enough.
Yeah, I mean, good enough is pretty
Yeah.
good, honestly.
Yeah.
When a lot of the coffee out there is pretty bad. I
Yeah.
would say most coffee is pretty bad these days when I just try a random shop
I
or
mean,
something like
maybe I just have fonder memories of Senseo that versus what it was actually like, but I thought it was pretty good.
that. There's also a little bit to be said about, fresher beans, fresher grounds, that kind of stuff. When it first came out, maybe it was
Yeah.
good, and then as things got older, it might not
Yeah.
taste as good. Yeah, it happens. What I was trying to do is segue into this Stratechery article
Mm.
about, we'll call it the AI maturity model. I think that the title is Enterprise Philosophy and the First Wave of AI. So it is like a free link. People can, go read this on your own. But essentially what happened was it looks like Ben Thompson heard about O1 and then decided to sort of put in like a checkpoint to figure out where
Mm-hmm.
we are, maybe a pulse check to sort of determine where we are in the state of computing compared to where Gen AI is and what I guess what the changes are that are coming. So this is kind of maybe why I'm over rotating on walk ups and elevators and books and stuff like that, because I wonder some of the stuff is evolutionary. Some of this stuff feels like a really big leap. And honestly, the
Mm-hmm.
telescoping escalator thing that grabs your stuff for you and puts it up to a fourth
Mm-hmm.
floor to me seems like a step change, right? Like it's a really big difference, and I think that's what he's saying. O1 was to him is that it looks like O1 is a step change in terms of the way that we're working with transformers, I guess, to put a real fine point on it. But in terms of the way that we deal with tokenization, how answers are delivered to the users, basically. So as a premise, I think that's what he's saying. Like, hey, things are not great, honestly, right now, because of the way tokenization works and prediction, blah 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 blah. The prevalence of wrong or wrong-ish answers becoming increasingly common as we start to use more of these tools, and as a result, the trust in the tooling is not as prevalent, I guess, or not as common as we'd expect. So people don't trust the tooling yet.
Hmm.
Businesses, on the other hand, are out here trying to, like, reduce jobs, make some more money, that kind of thing. Like, that totally makes sense. I think what Ben's saying, though, is that eventuality, in his mind, this is eventual, is going to be like 5 to 10 years at the very least. And
Hmm.
specifically, he needled on Copilot quite a bit, which is maybe fair at this stage in terms of their pricing, that kind of stuff, and the utility of Copilot compared to something like a Clippy. And this it's not his comparison, it's
Right.
Benioff's. It's from a Salesforce. I think they had Dreamforce last week. So it was
Hmm.
apparently Benioff brought up Clippy just to sort of, I don't know, get in a few jabs there on stage, but then use the example and said, like, hey, this may have been one of the first agents. So this is kind of like an agentic
Right.
workflow. It wasn't great. It was an expert system, and obviously if you did like a Dear John kind of thing, it's like, hey, it looks like you're writing a letter. That kind of
Right.
stuff isn't
Right.
really useful, even though it was cool. The wow factor kind of fizzled out really
Right.
quickly. I think what Benioff is saying for Salesforce is their agents will help them do this. So, for example, they've got one that can answer calls for $2 a call. Sorry, I should put a little checkpoint in here. When we're talking about agents, I think in this case, Benioff is probably talking about like call center agents specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But in these the agentic workflows, I think what they're talking about in general are things like this. Like, imagine you called up a number and
Right.
a virtual agent could answer your questions, that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
pay them $2 to Salesforce, of course,
Right.
and walk away. And the question is, are there other types of things, like, those little chat bots on a website
Hmm.
where you ask them questions about your order, that kind of stuff, like
Yeah.
these little agent kind of features that may be backed by one or two or three or more models, and they could answer your questions,
Hmm.
look up data. Maybe there's like a RAG associated to them, some sort of data that helps ground them. I think the main thing here is that Thompson is saying that these agentic workflows seem to be the next big things, but specifically when it comes to O1, or I guess it used to be called Strawberry and a few other things, but being able to
Hmm.
check and recheck the answers as they're being spit out, as opposed to
Mm.
spitting out the whole thing, calling it a day, and then doing like 1, 2, 3, 4 shot,
Right.
etc. answers. It's better to have the model do that on the first try, or maybe the second, to help you get to the answer more quickly, which is fair. But his concern was that right now it takes a long time. Now, I don't have access to
Right.
O1. I don't know if you do, but it sounds like it's slower, and as a result,
Yeah.
he thinks that this is maybe ahead of its time and really
Right.
cool, but it might take a while to get to where we want it to be,
Sure.
essentially.
In fact, I was just listening to a podcast this morning.
Uh-huh.
I haven't finished it.
Was it Mr.
Um,
Techery podcast? Because this
no, it
episode is
was
on there for
not.
free.
It's actually, no, it was a YouTube thing in my playlist. Let's see, what was it called? It was downloads. Just about aligning LLM assisted evaluation of LLM outputs with human preferences, something.
Interesting.
It was actually a person reading a paper, or like talking about a paper, just about how to ensure that the output from an LLM is matches up with your expectations.
Right.
And specifically, they were like, there are, when a business wants to have it pull out data and generate a report on it, but don't include any sensitive information. And they'll
Gotcha.
use like the term sensitive information, and then the model doesn't understand what sensitive is
Needs to be
and
defined, yeah.
has to be defined. And so you get all this sensitive information in the output. And, and so what kinds of things need to be added to prompts to ensure that you get the right output? But how do you verify that the output is actually what you wanted?
Right. Yeah, it doesn't sound easy, honestly,
No,
at all. Like this
no.
sounds like I think O1 is novel in the approach, but it feels like one of these things where we're going to spend a lot more time on verifying than we are on the actual, collecting the data, that kind of thing. There's a lot of talk in the actual article about people who have gobs of data who are well poised to, I guess, sanitize or clean the data in order to make
Hmm.
use of it, basically. So they,
Right.
I think the theory here is that like just because you've got a lot of data doesn't mean that you can use it to start training
Right.
a model or what have
Yeah.
you, or I don't know, retrain,
Yeah.
maybe fine tune or what have you. But there are companies, and this is where it got a little bit scary for me at least. Palantir was the one that he brought up as an example, which I understand. It's a big company, it's a software company. They've got a lot of companies involved, a lot of data,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Having to have that amount of data and being able to make sense of that data, I think, is where he's saying that this is what's going to take the longest time, is making sense of the types of data that
Mm.
you've got. And because of that, the models will get better as we go along. They make it bigger, they make it smaller. It's tough to say, but it's the data. Even though we think we've got a ton of data in there already,
Right.
the business specific data, I think, is what's missing. And that's what he's saying. For businesses
Mm.
to use this, for business use cases, they need to have data, and they are
Yeah.
definitely not the data like sanity specialists. I
Right.
don't know if you've ever worked with data at any company, but like it's always a mess, fraught with
Yeah.
errors. Stuff changes all the time. You have to be able to roll with the punches when your data comes in unclean. It's a mess.
I mean,
So
I think I've
that
mentioned this
resonates with me.
here. I
Hmm.
did a course on R on Coursera 5, 6, 7 years ago,
Right.
and the first probably half of the course is really about here's how to cleanse your data before we can actually do cool things with charts and stuff. Actually, that's probably
Yeah.
10 years old. Yeah,
I believe it's still true.
yeah.
So that trend didn't go anywhere. I think the other thing. So what I got to do is, so I had Notion kind of summarize some of this article
Hmm.
because I thought I may have missed a point, or two. So I think that the main thing here, not to read through it too much, is like Gen AI is a new computing paradigm. Is kind of the salient point.
Hmm.
That said, it may not be useful for everyone right now in the same way that something like a spreadsheet or a
Hmm.
CRM or an ERP was at the time.
Hmm.
But business owners are probably looking for that same type of replacement. So replacing a whole back office of people with like one
Right.
ERP program kind of thing
Right.
is the dollar sign shiny eye kind of look that the
Yeah.
business owners might have. We're not there yet, but as we work towards it, I think this is where we start running up against those implementation challenge. So things like I mean, I think you've probably understood that like a lot of employees are reluctant to use the Office 365. Was it $30 a month Copilot subscription?
Mm-hmm.
It's out there. It's a product. You can buy it.
Yeah.
The question is whether or not it has $30 of
Right.
utility. I
Yeah.
think is what remains to seen. The other is like because it's a cultural change and maybe more of a generational cultural change, it might actually take like another generation of people to
Yeah.
come up with these technologies. So
Yeah.
if you're trying to convince somebody to use like word art or whatever, like maybe the previous generation doesn't get it, but the one that
Hmm.
comes past it might actually be really excited about these
Yep.
tools. And I think that the main thing is like, hey, because of that, it's going to be have to be like it's going to have to be from top down, multi-tier, like C-level, basically saying, hey, we're
Right.
all in on this. We got to
Yep.
start using it that kind of time. And then yeah, got to get your data and then got to start sanitizing. So that's kind of the gist of the whole
Hmm.
article. There's a bunch of examples in here. I did notice that Claude wasn't mentioned once, which I thought was
Hmm.
very odd. Because generally, when we're talking about this kind of space, it feels like talking about the larger context window at the very least would be a topic. But yeah, it didn't come up at all. Don't, don't that.
I got Jade coming in. It's like
I see
I want to come in,
that.
and now she's going to spend the next hour trying to convince me to go back inside.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
So that was it. I thought it was a good read. It's free. If you're on Spotify, you can grab it in the podcast. They're under Stratechery, so it's like strategy, Stratechery.
Hmm.
They do have a few free episodes that you can grab from there. I thought this one was a good read. I would suggest reading it because there are some graphs and things like that. But if you want to listen, they do describe the graphs, and there is an audio quote in there from Steve Jobs, which I thought was pretty good. The old bicycle quote. I don't know if you know this one about the efficiency of animals. No, haven't heard this one.
No.
Okay, so I'll try to give justice to this quote, but basically it's like Jobs at one point in time saw a graph of essentially efficiency, so traveling efficiency. So ranking all of the animals on Earth in terms of like how efficient they are by weight. The one at the top, resoundingly at the top, was the condor. So it's very big, doesn't weigh very much, but it can fly for a long time without
Hmm.
expending too much energy. And about a third down in the list, to Steve Jobs' chagrin, were humans. And then the aha moment for Steve was, hey, humans, however, have tools. And in fact, the company who made this graph actually graphed humans on a bicycle, bringing it all the way back to the Netherlands and the prevalence of bikes. I fought really hard for this. Yeah, I hope you get it. And what his conclusion was, like, humans are tool builders, and because of that, it's unfair to just measure us based on like our makeup. As tool builders, we have a distinct advantage. And then Steve went on throughout his career to create more tools. I mean, he did a lot of things, of course. And what I think Ben is trying to say here is that Gen AI is a tool, but if we can't use it now, it's kind of useless. It needs to be like a better
Hmm.
hammer, essentially. And it's getting there for sure, but it feels like we need more iterations of the hammer in order for it to be more and more useful as a tool to help us be, I don't know, travel faster somehow. This
Hmm.
Gen AI,
Hmm.
that's where it falls apart. Maybe design a better bike.
Well, uh,
Sorry,
yes,
it was a good article. I hate to
cool.
gush every time there's a news
Well,
trajectory,
hey,
but this one was good.
there was another article that came out yesterday. There was
Yep.
a blog post by Sam Altman,
Ooh, I had not seen.
who head of OpenAI,
Right.
called "The Intelligence Age." Let's see if I can
Ooh, I
bring
found
this
it.
up. Um, and
ia.com.
what's that?
Yeah, I'll pop it into the chat.
Oh, okay.
This article has its own URL, which I
Yeah,
thought was kind of
yeah.
interesting.
I don't know. Maybe all of his articles do that. But I have not read this article. I don't know. I mean, all I know is the thing that keeps getting uh, covered about the article, and that is so. Here's a Ars Technica article. I mean, there's so many articles about this article, and he suggests that a super intelligence. He doesn't actually use the acronym ASI, which is the idea that AGI is could match human intelligence, and super intelligence maybe goes further, or ASI specifically goes further. He doesn't really say if that's what he's talking about, but he's suggesting that it could happen in thousand, a few thousand days, and
Oh
so
wow,
which I think is probably pretty
10 years,
accurate.
right?
That's like
Eight
20
years.
up to 27 years away. Think of 1,000 days is about almost 3 years,
Yep.
and so we're talking 20, 25, 27, maybe or longer years away, and that's, I mean, I think that's I wouldn't say that. I think a lot of people think that it's going to be sooner,
Mhm.
but it's nice that not all people are as crazy. Um, because I mean, I think
Wild
this
about
is
AI.
and but then he's also saying it may take longer, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to get there. But it could be in as little as a few thousand days, so upwards of 20 something years away. So anyway, it was just that is definitely getting some coverage. You can see that this article is mostly about that quote or about that sentence. But anyway, so that was somewhat interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It seems like his main thing is like AI is going to have a global impact on things
Sure.
like climate change, healthcare,
Yep.
education, and because of that, the quality of life is going to improve. And I always wonder about the ramifications of that last part. Like, if our
Yeah.
quality of life improves, does that mean that we'll spend more time on
It'll
arts and caring for others and things like that,
right.
benevolent kind of things, or does it
I
mean
mean,
that
I
we're
would
even more
imagine
selfish?
that's no matter what, that is totally true for a few small people in charge, or will it be true for everyone? I mean, is this going to be more like a Star Trek kind of world where everyone
Or the
is
Matrix?
or the Matrix, where everybody is happy, not realizing the truth of the Matrix,
Right.
or just happy unless you're not in Starfleet, or happy unless you're, you know,
A red shirt.
yeah, yeah. Um, or is this, or do you have to be in the, you know, uh, the people who own the company that runs the planet, which I think is where Elon Musk wants to be.
Right. Yeah, and I think we've talked a little bit about doomers before as like a belief, I guess. And this article for me kind of plants Sam in the other camp, at least. I think the conclusion here is that his perspective is optimistic about the
Mm-hmm.
potential of AI to drive that progress and improve
Mm-hmm.
human life. But I think he's saying that we should be cautious at the same
Yeah.
time, which I think is actually pretty
Yeah.
responsible.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about Sam Altman's public persona, but I think this is fairly well
Right.
written.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I should definitely have read it before mentioning it, but I definitely think I should read it still. Um, but hey, I was excited to do this talk, this
This podcast, yeah.
our usual conversation, because of how important today is.
Why is today important?
Today, because of the anniversary. The
Which
anniversary
anniversary?
today.
Did you get
I
married
mean,
today?
a historical event happened, yeah, a few years
An
ago.
unhistorical event a few years ago happened. What was it?
I mean, obviously, it's when the subsidiary of Golden United Life Insurance announced their big product. You don't remember? You don't know
I,
this?
I do not.
So about
You so lost me.
so
I
55
think
years
that was your
ago,
plan. Yeah.
55 years ago, roughly, Golden United Life Insurance decided that they were going to. They had a mainframe, and they knew a lot of small businesses don't have mainframes, so they would offer a time sharing service,
Okay.
so that small businesses could access these large computers and do their their numbers, whatever, all those things.
I'm with you so far.
Okay, but businesses only need their computers during the day, and so at
Yes.
night they're free to. I mean, these computers are mostly sitting unused, even though they have to pay for them all the time. And so they experimented with the idea of having like a consumer service. And so September 24th, 1979 is when Micronet came online, later rebranded as CompuServe.
Oh, that took a little minute. And I was like, I've heard that name before, but yes, the direct to the
so
past. That is hilarious.
so CompuServe came online 45 years ago today.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is yeah,
So that's kind of a big day.
that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Founders of the GIF format, all sorts of other things.
Yeah, we're going there. The gift.
GIF format. I mean, obviously, there's lots of opinions about, or at least there's two opinions about the pronunciation of GIF, and then there's the right one, GIF.
It's Geif, right? It's a strong eye.
Yeah, yeah. Giphy. Yeah.
Geify. G. Oh man.
The Q is
Yeah,
silent.
CompuServe I think was a pretty big deal. Hey, like
It
I
was.
didn't actually deal with them at all as a
Hmm.
Canadian. I
Okay. Yeah.
definitely know of them. When did they stop though? 1969 it was founded. Holy moly. I didn't
79 is when
it came
CompuServe
online.
started. So the time sharing to businesses started in '69, and it took them 10 years to think, oh, maybe we can do some other stuff with these computers.
I see that. That's
Um,
wow. I had no idea. And I
yeah,
also didn't know H&R Block bought them at one point in
yeah,
time.
yeah. I didn't
Wow.
realize that AOL bought them after from H&R Block.
This I think I knew. I didn't know that Verizon bought AOL and then killed
Hmm.
CompuServe in 2017.
Yeah,
Wow. This is me reading the wiki article,
yeah.
obviously. That's pretty cool. I think all of this is amazing. The other thing that you like in terms of after hours kind of mainstream work,
Yeah.
I think some games were developed on mainframes after
Hmm.
hours as well, like some of the first computer games. I find
Yeah.
that off schedule kind of stuff interesting, and that's
Yeah.
sort of when they started to do like data crunching overnight as well,
Hmm.
and you put in tickets and stuff like that. So like job scheduling started to
Yep.
become more and more popular. So a lot of our job systems have to do with this old kind of yeah. I find this
Yeah.
fascinating. Very, very
And
cool.
a
I thought you were going to say the birth of cloud computing or something like that. I was sure that's where you were going with
well, I
this.
mean, I
It
think
kind of is, right? Like
I mean,
shared
I think
services.
AWS, the idea of AWS, kind of has its roots in what Golden United Life Insurance, a company I'd never heard of.
The time
Uh,
sharing.
what? Yeah, I mean that's what they were doing, and pretty amazing. Um, I thought a TV show that is somewhat related to what CompuServe was doing and what a lot of
Mhm.
other companies were doing at the time. Um, that's definitely worth a watch. Is
Halt and Catch Fire.
Halt and Catch Fire? Yeah,
Yes, it's
yeah,
amazing. Totally
yeah,
agree. As well as
yeah,
like reversing the bias, I think was in the
yeah.
first season. Super, super interesting. Yeah, I found that I don't know what you call it, the fictionalization of like the online game that they were making to
Hmm.
run on this platform in order to make it like a killer app that everybody had
Hmm.
to have. I found that little wrinkle in the story very interesting. Like that
Yeah,
the World of Warcraft before World of Warcraft kind of stuff.
right.
I thought was quite cool.
And
Yeah.
some people I saw were comparing that to some game called Habitat. I'm not sure what it was, but
Oh, I'd never heard of Habitat.
yeah.
Halt and
But
Catch Fire was
I
fantastic.
remember when I used to. So the first job I got, kind of when I was still in college, I kind of sort of dropped out, but didn't really, and I finished my degree, which was worthless. But uh, I worked for a company called PC Docs in Tallahassee, Florida, and PC Docs had. I remember us buying, 20 or 24 U.S. Robotics, or actually it was Hayes at the time, Hayes 2400 baud modems for people to dial into support. And so that system that they had with all of those modems in the closet, I remember that closet at PC Docs. I mean,
This
that
sounds
was
like the stuff nightmares are made of.
yeah.
How many cables were in this
Oh
closet?
yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible, and he had like
Just spaghetti.
4 or 5 modems hooked up to per PC, and then you have a whole bunch of PCs in there, and it was crazy.
That is amazing. I shared the link to Habitat in the chat. I had never heard of this. This is
No,
kind of amazing to me. Like it was called Habitat in the beta, and then it was Club Caribe or Club Caribe when it launched. Yeah, it's super interesting. And then it
mm,
launched in North America as Worlds Away again. Very like this is way ahead of its time. Like as
yeah,
a massively multiplayer online game, and it was from Lucasfilms, which is just
which is bizarre.
super bizarre. This is very
I
very cool.
I remember when I was still in high school, and I would connect to the internet through University of Miami, and then I would because everything was connected, I would hook up to with um, Abermud. I think it was called
Okay,
ABERM, probably MUUD,
yeah.
or MUD. So that was out of Aberystwyth in Wales, and yeah, 89
And a mud is a multi-user dungeon.
multi-user dungeon.
I've actually never, I've
And
never used the mud.
it was mostly about. I mean, there was Abermud, and you could play this game,
Mhm.
but it was also kind of like you would go into. I don't even remember how it worked, but there was ended up being like these chat rooms within Abermud,
Oh,
and that's what I remember. And I was like the one person outside of Wales that was on this system, and I was this high school kid in Miami.
what did it say? Is it Manx, the only non-Manx participant?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. um,
I would love to visit Wales. That place looks amazing for me in terms
oh
of like
yeah,
photography, like
yeah,
rocks and water, moody
yeah,
seascapes, that kind of stuff. It looks phenomenal for long
yeah,
exposures.
yeah. I mean, there's so many. I'm actually now trying to think of Welsh TV or movies. I can't think of any. Well, I mean, there's plenty of British, detect somebody, some body is found, and it could be in a rural area of North England or Wales or Scotland. I mean, and so much of that landscape is gorgeous. But I mean, even if you don't watch the top plot of the show. I mean, like the movie, TV series like Outlander. I mean, it just shows Scotland and how gorgeous the landscape is. Yeah,
Now,
it's a beautiful place.
IMDb has Peppa Pig listed as Welsh, which I feel
Really,
like we'd need to fact check. But I literally just looked up Welsh TV shows, and that was the second on the list, which I
most
find
TV
interesting.
shows. Really?
It does look
Uh
like Merlin seems to be a common answer,
oh yeah, okay.
which I'd not seen, and Sherlock, which I didn't know. Interesting. Okay.
Britannia. I didn't think Britannia was.
Yeah, there were a few like Gangs of London's another one, like a few that were I
Oh,
assumed were
Hinterland.
based
Hinterland. Yes.
in
I
Sherlock.
didn't
Yeah.
realize it was in Aberystwyth, Wales, because I've watched that uh, DCI Matthias. Yeah, uh, a lot of
Very
these I don't. I've never heard of any of these.
Me either. So
Um,
yeah, it's definitely worth a look. Let's yeah, so exercise for the listener. Go go forth and find us some Welsh TV shows. Looks like
yeah.
there's quite a few.
Yeah, well, my the one thing I would so if you speak to any person in who is Welsh, they will probably there is one town name they all have to know. Apparently, like all Welsh people have to know this town name because it's like a bit of trivia to be able to say this one town's name, and it's like this. It doesn't fit on a single sign. Like, it's like really long.
You guys found it.
Um, yeah, yeah, okay. And my dad would often, so I'd say, "Oh, can you say that town name again?" He's like, Say it all out," because my dad's Welsh.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah,
So the funny thing is this, and I'm not going to try to say this. I think we can start with Landfair. I get that part.
yeah,
After
yeah,
that, I'm lost.
yeah.
So Landfair PG, I think is what a lot of people say,
Ah, okay.
has a lengthened version with a Wikipedia pronunciation button. It is 58 characters in
Yeah,
18 syllables. This has to be the one you're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
And it looks like it's like right on the border. That is
Oh,
hilarious.
yeah. Okay.
It's right on the coast. Yes, this is phenomenal. Oh, fantastic. Yes,
Wow.
I sorry. Landfair PG is how this will be
Yeah, yeah.
how this will be known from now on.
Wow.
Um, listen. So I've been watching a lot of TV. I'm still trying to catch up with Slow Horses. Unfortunately, it's one of those
Mm,
ones like it's every Wednesday, so I have to wait for it. So I'm in season 4, still
okay.
steadfast with my recommendation. But prior to going to New York, I bought a new camera, and I don't think I told anyone about it.
Yeah.
I figured I took a photo of you as we were prepping for this.
Right.
I'll show it again. So this is the camera. It's quite small, and I
Nice.
realize that some people may be listening, but this is about the size of maybe my forehead. I think. Yeah, it's not too bad. It it's the size of like an old iPod. I think just a little bit bigger than an iPod Classic when it's down. It's really really small and quick to turn on. It is the Ricoh GR3X. Let you assume that Pentax and Ricoh are they're still making cameras. I think we talked about the Pentax 17 a little while ago.
Yeah.
And there is a new version of this camera, but as a result, stock on the older version is finally trickling out, which is great because it's a great camera. It is
Mm,
not cheap. So Canadian, I think it's $1,400 for the equivalent of like a 40 millimeter 2.8 lens, APS-C sensor. It's got film profiles and some stuff like that people
yeah.
might buy it for, but like in terms of the specs, it's pretty middling for specs.
Yeah.
The reason it's so expensive is because it's so small. I think
Mm,
my only regret with this thing is that it doesn't have a flash. I think the older
yeah.
version did, so I ended up buying a flash that's coming. But yes, this was fantastic in Times Square, for example,
Really.
where I wanted to look like a tourist, but also wanted to take some street shots, that kind of thing.
So
None of them
when
turned out,
you
but I was training.
I'm trying to imagine the size of my fore. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm assuming our
yeah,
foreheads are about
yeah,
the same size. So
yeah.
okay, because right when you hold it up, it like wow, that's huge.
Yeah,
But
it's
maybe
pretty small.
it's smaller than I. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty small.
yeah.
I don't know inches. Was it 2 inches by? mm, 4 inches ish.
Yeah,
Yes, that's maybe four, maybe three.
that's pretty
It's
cool.
pretty tiny. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't weigh much. It fits in my jeans pocket, which is like a big deal for
Mm,
me. So like, you know what they say, the camera that you have with you is the best
right.
one.
Right.
This is the one that I can at least bring with me.
Yeah.
It is. I should also admit this is the second version of this camera that I have. I also
Mm,
have the 28 mm version, which I
mm,
find is just a bit too wide sometimes when I want to take a
okay.
portrait or what have you. Yeah, but it's so good that I bought the camera twice.
Wow.
Yes, I know, it's pretty rare. Pretty rare.
Um,
What about yourself? What
hmm.
have you been up to? What have you been
um,
spending your time on?
what have I been doing? Just making videos. I can't think of anything else.
Just grinding.
Grinding. Yes, I did a. What's that? Random boxes. Oh, that's a good thing to have. What's this
Looks like
from?
a power supply.
Power supply for USB C or USB A, USB C
There you go. Just
with
random.
BenQ on it.
Thank you.
I don't
Projector.
have. I don't own anything from BenQ.
BenQ makes monitors and projectors these days. I think I'm sure they make other stuff, but that's what I associate the brand with.
I don't know what this is from.
Oh.
Huh.
Now, were you affected by the recall of those batteries?
That's from the light. The light over there.
Oh, yeah, they do make
BenQ.
lights. Yes.
Okay.
They make the BenQ E reading LED lamp. Is that what's over there?
The one that's mounted on top of the
that
monitor,
one. Okay.
so you can't actually see it. It's like
These look like fancy lights. Yeah.
it's a really nice. It's the nicest light. I didn't expect to like it so much.
Now, I think we've seen the light before, but were you affected by any of those Anker battery recalls? Because I certainly was. I have one that's stuck to the back of my phone that I think is now
I haven't.
recalled or whatever.
Oh yeah, I haven't bought an Anker battery in 5 years, 6 years.
I mean, it might be time to check them as well.
Oh, what happens to them?
I think 3 of them got recalled. One of them was the ancient power bank, the one that's a little bit more narrow. The other one was the one that's stuck to the back of your phone, and I can't remember the third one. But they recalled 3 batteries, as far
Okay.
as I know, and 3
Um.
power banks. It would call them.
Oh no, these are all new batteries. I mean, compared to what I have.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I've got one of these, the one that sticks on the back of the phone with a kickstand,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. The other one I do not. The one with like the captive cable,
Right.
definitely do. Yeah. Okay. You're safe.
Hmm.
Anyone else in the podcast, listen, I got nothing bad to say about Anchor. I think they at least noticed that there was a problem and issued a recall.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I will say, though, that like when batteries go bad, this isn't good news. So I
Right.
think if you do have one, definitely be careful, get rid of it, dispose of it properly. What to do? They say store the device in a safe location, stop using it, check your serial number, and oh, interesting. Ooh, okay.
What?
So in Canada, they want you to take it to a local waste management facility, but it does look like you might be able to get a refund if you put your serial number in. So before I throw mine out, I may do that. So that was my plan today.
I have a stack of about probably 10 or 12 older Anker batteries.
Wow.
Datadog bought them all.
You forced your former employee to buy them for you.
To
Yes?
power up my Raspberry Pi
Right.
Zeros or Nanos or whatever for 2 weeks at a time. And recently we went camping and I thought, oh, let me just power these things, see if they still have any juice. I let them sit for, I remembered about an hour before we left, so I let them power up or recharge.
Yep.
And they never went past one of the 5 dots of power, but they
None of them
lasted
did.
the entire, they lasted the whole time. So that was, I mean, I didn't have to do much with them, just recharge my phone, my phone and Tony's phone a couple of times, and they were fine for that. But I only found 3 of them, and I know there's like 7 others somewhere,
That's not good.
probably in a box above this ceiling.
This is what worries me about these batteries. Again, nothing about the company in particular, but this battery tech
Just Right.
does scare me just sitting in a box somewhere.
Yeah. And I should probably go through those boxes looking for those batteries.
Yeah, it does seem to be like one of those things that you want to watch out for.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right. I think the other one was like e-bike batteries in New York or something like that were causing fires. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I didn't want people storing their e-bikes in their apartments as a result. I don't know what they
Right.
were. But again, it's just the battery tech. We're getting to,
Right.
I think it's LiFePO 4, lithium ferrous
Mm.
potassium, lithium ferrite potassium. Those seem to be a lot more safe at rest. But it
Right.
looks like changing over to this new tech is going to take a while. And then I think next to that, we talked about this a little bit, was those solid state ones, like that big honking one that I did finally get a refund
Mm.
for. That I
Mm-hmm.
bought by mistake, the extra one. The
Mm-hmm.
refund came in. It took a long time. I suspect I was not the only idiot who bought this from Amazon, or maybe I just want to think that I
Yeah.
wasn't the only idiot because it
Yeah.
took a while to get the refund, and normally it's pretty quick. But yeah, I did get the refund. Again, can't say enough about EcoFlow. Unfortunately, I don't own the device, but it
Right.
looked fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I just saw over the weekend on Saturday, the
Mm-hmm.
local Bainbridge Island Prepares is like their disaster preparedness
Preparedness. Yep.
group. And apparently, this one there's like there's a book that's written for how communities in the U.S. or communities
Mm-hmm.
should prepare for disasters. And the
Right.
guy who wrote it, who like wrote all the books on this stuff, runs the Bainbridge Island disaster preparedness. And apparently,
That's
this is
cool.
like the best place to be. And so there's if something happens, if Mount Rainier blows up or there's an earthquake or something, and the island is cut off, there's all sorts of teams that get into and like tents are set up and like a lot of stuff and communication lines are set up
Mhm.
automatically. It's just a lot of stuff is in place, but they had a kind of help you get prepared
Yep.
for disaster. Um, and so actually we have soon after this call is done, I'll
Mm-hmm.
have water for probably containers for I think 120 gallons of water to store. So like all in 5 gallon jugs. So I think
Wow.
we've got like six times four, so 24 of these jugs
Right.
that are being delivered. And but one thing they had a lot of examples from a company called Jackery.
I haven't heard of them.
They do these battery banks
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're
generators
like
and all sorts.
generators. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen
and
the cheap one, the Jackery Explorer. Yeah, I just pulled it up.
so they have, yeah. I mean, I looked online, like the
Hmm.
Jackery 1000 something.
Right.
It's $1,500 or $1,600,
That sounds about right.
um, and then one of the versions of it, I think it costs a little bit more, comes with four large solar panel arrays.
Right.
And so these arrays are like, I think each one is like this, about 2-3 feet
Yep.
square, but it unfolds so it's like three across or four across. And then there's four of those, and that is enough to generate 800 watt hours,
Really?
just those four little panels.
Wow.
And that will recharge. And basically, you can be running all the time. You constantly recharge during the day, and you're set for the evening. And you could power, some pretty big things on that generator.
Now these are not cheap in Canada, so it's the equivalent of
Yeah,
like 1900 Canadian.
yeah,
The one with two, but the fact that it can provide it's 1500 watts on its own
fifteen
once it's got
hundred
a
watts.
charge,
Yeah,
which is astounding. Let
yeah,
alone yeah, and I know
and
that's best case with the solar, but like let
yeah,
alone being able to do 800 on solar is
and
pretty
they
cool.
also, you can plug into, your wall outlet and charge it up there, and they
Right.
guarantee that you're going to be able to hold that charge for a full year. And
That's
so
fantastic.
you
Again,
are
this is like full
prepared
core,
for
right? That's
disaster
fantastic.
up to, just plug it in once a year and you're set.
Very cool.
Yeah, it looks
I'm
pretty neat.
really excited about battery tech. I'm not sure if that was obvious in the podcast, but like, I really do feel like that the future of where we're
Yeah.
going, it kind of resides around either it's this lithium iron phosphate or solid state or some sort of new battery tech, right? It's got to be better than Tesla's driving around with ganged up Eneloops in them. There has to
Yeah.
be a better solution than
Yeah.
this. This is really cool. So it looks like
So
they're a competitor to the one that I was looking at.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a brand I hadn't heard of, but
Right.
it looked pretty cool. The other thing that I learned in that was apparently you're supposed to clean out or flush your hot water heater
What?
every year or two.
Oh, I mean, I don't own a home, but I can say at home, we definitely never did that.
No, I've never heard of such a thing. And they had an example hot water heater, and like they had it cut open, and
Yeah.
and showed all the sediment that was at the bottom.
Mm.
And they said that is from 2 years of use. It just will collect the sediment, and it was like, oh my god, that looks awful. And apparently, you just add a faucet to it, and you fill up a bucket, let it fill up, and keep dumping it. Or that could be the beginnings of your if as long as you're doing this every year, the sediment's not going to build up too much, and that could be the beginnings of your emergency water supply. So you don't have to waste the water, or do something else with it.
Gotcha. Oh,
Water your
that's pretty
plants.
interesting. Yeah. Now, where you are in Bainbridge Island, is solar an option? Like in terms of this kind of preparedness
Yeah.
plan? It is.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, solar is. There are a lot of roofs with solar. In fact, one of the few installed Tesla roofs is we know the family that has it.
Oh, there you go.
Apparently, there's not many because they're kind of hard to install and they didn't work well, or they worked well, but
Right.
getting it installed was hard.
Yeah, I think Tesla is one of those. I won't say competitors, but they're in that same sort of market as Jackery because they have that wall
Yeah,
panel,
yeah,
wall bank, or whatever it's called. Which again, like powering your home off the grid seems to be a common
Yeah.
concern. Outside of preppers, like preparedness, sure, but like outside
Yeah.
of the people who have the bunkers and things
Yeah.
like that, this seems to be more and more common as more and more of our lives revolve around, technology
Yeah.
running, unfortunately. And it
Yeah.
feels like we're back to the DevOps, like own your own uptime kind of stuff. So if you're in charge of your home and you can't trust the utilities, what do you do? That kind of thing. I like that thinking as someone who grew up on a farm. Like this is important to me because we used to have storms roll in and we lose power all the time.
Yeah. I mean, we have a generator, and I think on that, if we lose power and we let the generator stay on, we can power the entire house for, I think it's something like 30 days.
That is fantastic.
Because of the massive gas tank out underground.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
I assume that's propane that the
it's
tank
all
is?
propane. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
So
All right, folks.
Hey, it
So
looks like
go
there's
out and
been
get
a couple
yourselves a
questions.
Jackery. Pardon me?
There's been a couple questions.
Oh, shoot. Has there?
Yeah.
Uh,
So, if you wanted to have a private model that had access to your personal contacts, i.e., phone numbers, birthdays, names, and addresses, is it better to use RAG or absolutely RAG? Fine tuning is not really. I mean, you can add information to a model with fine tuning, but it's not its strong suit. If you're going to add information like that, RAG is your best bet.
Gotcha. I just
Gemini
want to quickly
already does it.
apologize to Chad. Chad, I was looking at YouTube, but I assume you're on Twitch or Twitter or something else. Sorry, I
Ah.
didn't see these questions. I apologize. So yes, your questions
Yeah,
are
I don't know what
certainly
the
welcome.
source is to that. But yeah, so RAG all the way. Somebody said Gemini already does it. Well, lots of models do it, but RAG is what you want. It did answer because I don't. Google is, yeah, and they're using RAG. Yes, looks like the guys are just rambling on random topics
Yeah,
instead of reading the
absolutely
text
true.
here. Even though it said questions are totally welcome. Always welcome. Sometimes we just forget to look because we get on these. I don't think this
Yes, what
isn't.
happened was I didn't have live chat turned on. Apparently, there's a difference between top
Yes,
chat and live
top
chat.
and live.
This is how we lost you, Chad. Apparently, you were not in the top chat.
Well, I think even we're on
I do see the mini cam.
eCam.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where they came from. Yes, they are in the
So
chat. I apologize. Also, I'll see them next week for sure.
so questions are definitely random. We don't have one topic. It's just like a conversation we have. It's often AI stuff that we talk about, but sometimes it's as we've seen today, batteries and other things come up.
Bidets.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
let's see. I'd feed a JSON directly on a local vector database and connect Llama with Ollama, therefore RAG. Although there are better solutions like an agent connected direct. I wouldn't connect to
Those
an agent
those are
to a
different things,
yeah
right? Like
different
I feel like an agent could use RAG, but agentic
yes
doesn't necessarily require it. I think is
require that.
yeah.
Um, and RAG is usually going to be connected to a vector database, vector
Like
data store. You're not usually going to connect it to a traditional SQL database, though there are ways to do that. And it's not going to directly connect to files because then it's hard to find the information that you want. So those would be worse solutions. You definitely want to have RAG connected to a vector database.
I want to say that like 6 hours ago, Microsoft released a video on using RAG with SQL database vector search, but this is like
Oh, that's a
absolutely news
vector.
to me because
Yeah,
having
well,
looked
that's
at this
vector.
topic so many times. Yes, vector.
So SQL
I had
Server vector.
never heard of this before.
Yeah. And I just learned about a vector add-on for Redis as well. So you can use
That I didn't know
Redis,
about. Yes.
whether that using their cloud-based solution or their local solution, or locally installed. Okay, most hot water heaters have a spigot at the bottom. Yes, mine does too. I'm not sure if I have a open close valve where I have to add
This
on.
I've definitely seen. It looks like you could get like hot tea out of it or something.
Yeah,
Ours
yeah,
definitely had it on the bottom, right?
yeah,
Like it's,
yeah. And it's
it's
probably
something like
hot, so you
that.
don't want to like leave your hand underneath it because that would be hot.
Yeah.
Okay, Tegna, what's the difference between RAG and agent connected?
Yes.
Okay, so those are two totally separate things.
It could be a Venn diagram like where one contains the other, but they could also be separate, I
It's,
guess is what we're trying to say. So agentic may or may not have
I mean,
RAG, and RAG in general has a data store that's attached to
yes.
it. Or always has a data store that's attached to it.
No need
That is
of
the
a really
retrieval
intelligent
augmented part.
model as the system converts the question into. No, not really. Okay. There's a soon to develop hurricane headed right at me. Okay. I really wish I had a propane generator running on my tank. Yes. There's softwares like Flowise. I mean, Flowise is definitely a great no-code solution for building RAG as well as building agents as well as doing all sorts of things. A lot of other tools like Flowise, and N8N I really like. It's kind of think of Flowise as being great to get started. As soon as you run into the walls that you have with Flowise, N8N does so much more. Very similar to Flowise is Diffy or Diffy, however you like to say it, Dify. So Flowise and Diffy, and then N8N is amazing. I'm on YouTube. Okay, that's where we figured out. Oh, there's comments. Congratulations on your YouTube. Cool, thanks. On his YouTube.
I think it's on your YouTube.
Chat, or is it my YouTube or his
I think so.
YouTube?
Congrats. Yes.
Okay. Any recommended vector databases? There are many vector databases, and so there. I mean, the easiest one to kind of play around with and get started with is
Pinecone.
Chroma. DB.
Oh.
Super easy to get started with, but then there's so many others. Milvus is probably one of the bigger ones. But then there's lots of online services. Pinecone is great. There's lots of these online database vendors like Supabase has vector. Redis is another one that's been around for a long time. You can install yourself or have it up in the cloud, and they have a vector store on top. There's PG Vector on top of Postgres. There's Chroma is SQLite. What else is there?
Weaviate, I think it's BSD.
Weaviate is super popular. There's actually a chart. Hold on. Let's see. Let's go to this. And then if I look at DB... Uh-oh. There's somebody at my door. Um,
Is it time to call it, or should we
I
pull it
think
up real quick?
it's. Hold on, let me. I got to go find out what's going on because that might not wait.
So listen, there's a ton of vector databases. I put one in the chat. The ones that I'm familiar with, just in terms of like talking to other people out there, Weaviate and Pinecone and PG Vector, I'd say are the ones that I hear about the most. Matt didn't talk about Llama Index. There's also like Couchbase, Azure Cosmos DB, a bunch of those sort of more commercial offerings that are like hosted for you. There's also the sort of bring your own or like put stuff on top of other databases. So we mentioned PG Vector. There's also MariaDB, Elasticsearch, Cassandra, in terms of things that you may already know. Redis, I think we mentioned before. So there are quite a few options in here to look at. The reason I put the Wikipedia one in there is because you can look at the licenses as well. Not saying like you should go open source or what have you, but if you're just getting started and want to play with stuff, I feel like having an open source option is a good way to go. And he's back.
Well, speaking of water jugs,
Did they just arrive?
They just arrived. So I got to go.
Yes, sir. I just went over the vector database offerings and posted a Wikipedia article into the chat. But yeah, I think we're good to go.
I got to go.
All right, sir.
All
Have a
right.
good one.
Bye.